Marcus had never tried to repair quantum weapons while they were charging for combat. But there was a first time for everything. Sparks flew from control panels as he rerouted power conduits, and the ship shuddered around him as Zixandra tested the engines. "Dragon Guard vessels, you are ordered to stand down and prepare for boarding." The voice echoed through the ship's communication system, cold and authoritative. "Keeper Zixandra, you will surrender yourself and your stolen vessel immediately." "Stolen?" Zixandra's response shook the walls. "This ship was mine by right of inheritance, Commander Thaxlon. I claimed her when the Council decided to turn our greatest achievements into scrap metal. You are in violation of Council Resolution 847. Ancient weapons of war have no place in the modern galaxy. Surrender now, or we will be forced to destroy both you and that relic." Marcus looked up from the weapons control junction he was rewiring. "Friendly bunch, your Dragon Guard." "Thaxlon was always a fool," Zixandra replied, her claws flying over the navigation controls. "He believes that progress means forgetting the past, that peace can only exist by destroying the tools of war. He does not understand that sometimes strength is the only thing that preserves peace." "Well, he's about to get a lesson in ancient firepower." Marcus finished his work and began running diagnostics on the weapon systems. Main battery is at 60% capacity and rising. Point defense systems are online. Whatever you're planning to do, now would be a good time. Then let us remind them why their ancestors ruled the galaxy. The void's edge erupted from the docking bay like a creature awakening from a long sleep. The ancient ship moved with grace that defied her massive size, quantum drives propelling her away from the station with smooth acceleration. Behind them, the 3 Dragon Guard vessels broke formation and gave chase. Marcus watched the tactical display from the engineering station, monitoring the ship's systems as they came under stress for the first time in decades. "They're faster than us. More maneuverable, too. But not stronger." Zixandra's voice carried grim satisfaction. "And they have forgotten what this ship was built to do." The first enemy salvo struck the void's edge amidships, energy beams that would have crippled a modern warship. The ancient shields held, absorbing the impact and redistributing the energy through the quantum matrix. Marcus felt the ship shudder, but the readings remained stable. "Shields at 85%, he called out. "We can take a few more hits like that. We will not need to." Zixandra began inputting commands into the weapons control system. "Marcus, I need you to override the power limiters on the main battery." "Override them?" "The weapons are already drawing more power than they were designed for." This ship was not designed by engineers who thought small, human. She was built to fight entire fleets, to stand alone against impossible odds. Her builders understood that sometimes you must risk everything to save everything. Marcus looked at the power readings and felt his breath catch. If he removed the limiters, the weapons would draw power directly from the quantum core itself. The ship would become, for a brief moment, the most powerful warship in known space. But the strain might also tear her apart. "If this doesn't work, we're going to turn into the galaxy's most expensive firework," he warned. "If this does not work, we will be destroyed anyway. At least this way, we go down fighting." Marcus made his choice and began disabling the safety systems that had kept the ancient weapons in check for centuries. As each limiter fell away, he could feel the ship's power growing. The quantum field becoming more intense, more focused. The Dragon Guard ships closed in for another attack run. Their commanders confident that they were facing a decrepit relic. They had no idea they were about to face the full fury of a ship that had been designed to fight gods. "Power at maximum," Marcus announced. "All weapons charged and ready. Then let us show them the legend they tried to bury." Zixandra's voice carried the weight of centuries. "Fire," the void's edge spoke with the voice of ancient thunder. Energy beams that dwarfed anything in the modern arsenal lanced out from her weapon batteries, striking the lead Dragon Guard vessel with the force of a collapsing star. The enemy ship's shields collapsed instantly, her hull buckling under the impossible energies being directed at her, but that was only the beginning. The ancient ship's weapons didn't just fire, They reached across space and grabbed the enemy vessels, holding them in fields of force that made escape impossible. This wasn't just superior firepower. This was technology that operated on principles the modern dragons had forgotten existed. Impossible. Commander Thaxlon's voice crackled over the communication system. Those weapon systems were lost centuries ago. Not lost, Zixandra replied. Abandoned. There is a difference, Commander. One that you are about to learn. The second enemy ship tried to break free, overloading her engines in an attempt to escape the ancient force fields. The ship tore itself apart rather than submit to capture. The third vessel, seeing the fate of her companions, powered down her weapons and began broadcasting surrender codes, but Marcus barely noticed the battle's end. He was watching the ship's internal readings with growing alarm. The quantum core was fluctuating wildly, the strain of powering weapons beyond her current capacity threatening to tear the entire matrix apart. Zixandra, we need to shut down the weapons now. The core can't handle this much longer. Already done. The dragon's claws flew over the controls, gradually reducing power to the weapon systems. But look at what she accomplished. Look at what we accomplished together. Marcus did look, and what he saw took his breath away. The most powerful ships in the Dragon Guard fleet had been defeated not by superior numbers or better technology, but by the combination of ancient wisdom and human innovation. The repairs he had made hadn't just restored the ship's systems, they had made them better than they had ever been. How did you know this would work? He asked. I did not. But I believed in the ship, and I believed in you. Zixandra turned to face him, and Marcus saw something in her ancient eyes he had never seen before. Respect. You did not just repair the Void's edge, human. You understood her. You listened to what she needed and gave it to her, even when it defied everything you thought you knew about engineering. The communication system crackled to life again. But this time the voice was different, older, more formal. Keeper Zixandra, this is High Counselor Veltar. We have observed the engagement. We wish to discuss terms. Terms? Zixandra's voice was dangerously quiet. What terms would those be, High Counselor? It appears we may have been hasty in our decision to decommission the ancient fleet. Perhaps there is wisdom in preserving certain aspects of our heritage. Marcus couldn't help but grin. Nothing like a practical demonstration of superior firepower to change political minds. The Void's Edge will remain operational, Zixandra declared. She will serve as a reminder that some things should not be forgotten, some knowledge should not be lost. And she will be maintained by the only engineer in the galaxy who truly understands her, assuming he is willing to accept the position. Marcus looked around the ship that had become as familiar to him as his own apartment. The quantum core hummed with perfect harmony now, all systems working together in the seamless integration their builders had envisioned. This wasn't just a job anymore, it was a calling. I accept, he said. But I have some conditions. I want a full engineering team, access to historical databases, and hazard pay for working with experimental quantum weapons. Done, as the Void's Edge set course for the Dragon homeworld. Marcus Chen found himself thinking about legends. The galaxy was full of stories about ancient powers and forgotten technologies, but most people dismissed them as myths. He had learned something important in the past few days. Sometimes the myths were real. Sometimes the legends were just waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to believe in them. The ship around him was proof of that. She was a legend made real, a bridge between the distant past and the uncertain future. And now she was his responsibility, his to maintain and protect and help her tell her story to a galaxy that had almost forgotten how to dream of such wonders. In the engineering bay, surrounded by quantum conduits and harmonic resonators that sang with the voice of ancient knowledge, Marcus smiled and got back to work. There was still so much to learn, so much to discover. The Void's Edge had many more secrets to share, and he intended to uncover every one of them. After all, legends weren't meant to be buried. They were meant to inspire the next generation to reach even higher, to build even greater wonders. And sometimes, just sometimes, it took a human engineer to remind the galaxy of that truth, The legend of the Void's Edge would continue, and Marcus Chen would be there to make sure she never stopped flying. 36 hours into the repair, Marcus was beginning to understand just how complex Zixandra's ship really was. Every system he fixed revealed two more that needed attention. The quantum resonance core was coming back into alignment, but the navigation matrix was corrupted. The shield generators were running on emergency power, and the weapon systems hadn't functioned properly in decades. "This isn't just a ship," Marcus said as he emerged from another maintenance crawl. His uniform stained with some kind of luminescent fluid that the dragon assured him was harmless. "This is like a living organism. Everything is connected to everything else." Zixandra, who had been watching his progress with increasing attention, nodded slowly. The builders of this vessel understood something that most modern engineers do not, that true power comes not from individual components, but from the harmony between them. The builders! Marcus wiped his hands on a rag and looked up at the dragon. "You didn't build this ship, I?" Zixandra's laugh was like distant thunder. "Human, this ship is older than I am. Older than my mother was. This vessel was constructed by the first ones, the dragons who ruled the galaxy when your world was nothing but cooling rock." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He had known the ship was ancient, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. "How old are we talking about?" "Old enough that the star charts in the navigation system show constellations that no longer exist." Zixandra's eyes grew distant. "This ship, the Void's Edge, was one of 7 vessels built to guard the outer reaches of dragon space. It has seen empires rise and fall, watched stars be born and die. What happened to the other 6 ships? Gone, destroyed in wars whose names are forgotten, lost in the dark spaces between galaxies, or simply worn away by the weight of centuries. This is the last." The weight of that revelation settled on Marcus like a physical thing. He was working on the last remnant of an ancient dragon civilization, a piece of history that was literally priceless. Why bring it to a human station for repairs? Surely there are dragon engineers who would understand this technology better than I do. Zixandra's expression darkened. "There are no dragon engineers, human. My people gave up the old ways long ago. We became traders, diplomats, collectors of art and knowledge. The young dragons look at ships like this and see only relics, reminders of a more violent past they wish to forget. But not you, not me." The dragon's voice carried a note of sadness. "I am keeper of the old ways, guardian of the last traditions. When the Council of Scales decided that the ancient warship should be scrapped, I took this one and fled. I have been searching for someone capable of restoring her for 3 decades. Marcus stood up and walked over to one of the massive control panels. The symbols were starting to make sense to him now, their meaning becoming clearer as he worked with the ship's systems. "That's why you've been so dismissive. You've been disappointed before. Many times. The shipyards I visited either lacked the skill to understand the ship's systems, or they understood enough to know they were beyond repair and refused to try." Zixandra moved to stand beside him, her massive frame dwarfing the human engineer. "You are the first to make meaningful progress." "I'm not just making progress," Marcus said, pulling up a diagnostic display that showed the ship's systems in a slowly improving cascade of green lights. "I think I can actually fix this thing. It won't be easy, and it won't be quick, but I can bring her back to full operational status." The dragon stared at the display for a long moment. "You truly believe this?" "I know this, look." Marcus pointed to different sections of the diagnostic. "The quantum core is back in primary resonance. Shield generators are responding to calibration commands. Life support is running at 93% efficiency. Even the weapon systems are showing signs of life." "The weapons." Zixandra's voice trailed off. "Human, do you have any idea what kind of weapons this ship carries?" "From the power readings, something that could probably crack a moon in half." Marcus grinned. "Why? Planning to start any wars?" "No, but others might." The dragon's expression grew serious. "There are those who would not be pleased to learn that the Void's Edge has been restored to function. This ship represents more than just ancient technology. It represents power that some believe should remain buried in the past. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and the newly repaired systems began sending priority alerts to the control panels. "What's happening?" Marcus shouted over the noise. Zixandra was already at the sensor array, her clawed hands dancing over controls with practiced ease. "We have visitors. 3 ships, heavily armed, closing on the station fast." "Pirates?" "Worse." The dragon's voice was grim. "Dragon Guard, the Council's enforcement arm." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "They're here for the ship?" "They are here for me. The Council has decided that my exile has gone on long enough." Zixandra turned to face him, and for the first time since they had met, Marcus saw something like fear in her ancient eyes. "They will destroy the ship rather than let it fall into the wrong hands. Can we run?" "Not with the navigation system still offline. We would be flying blind, and they would intercept us before we could jump to hyperspace." The dragon moved to another control panel, bringing the ship's defensive systems online. "But perhaps we do not need to run." "You want to fight 3 ships with a vessel that's barely holding together?" This vessel, human, was designed for war. Even damaged, even centuries old, the Void's Edge is still the most powerful warship ever constructed by my people. Zixandra's eyes blazed with inner fire. "The question is whether you can complete the repairs in time to make a difference." Marcus looked at the diagnostic displays, calculating rapidly. "I need at least 6 more hours to bring the navigation system online, maybe 12 to get the weapons to full power." "We do not have 12 hours. The guard ships will be in weapons range in 30 minutes. Then we'll have to make do with what we have." Marcus was already moving, grabbing tools and spare components. "Can you buy me time?" "I can try." "But Marcus—" The dragon paused, using his name for the first time. "If we do not survive this, know that you have already achieved something remarkable. You have brought this ship further back to life than anyone thought possible." "We're not dying today," Marcus said firmly. "I didn't spend 36 hours crawling through quantum conduits just to get blown up by your people's police force." As he ran toward the engineering section, Marcus could hear Zixandra powering up the ship's defensive systems. Weapons that had been silent for decades hummed to life. Shield generators that hadn't seen combat since before. Earth had a name began charging their emitters. The Dragon Guard was coming. But they would find that the last ship of the ancient fleet was not going to surrender quietly. And they would learn something that Marcus was only beginning to understand himself, that human engineering, combined with dragon technology, could accomplish things that neither species could achieve alone. The real test was about to begin, and Marcus Chun was determined to prove that human ingenuity could save even the most ancient of legends. He just had to keep the ship together long enough to show them what the Void's Edge could really do when she was given the chance to fight. Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he climbed out of the maintenance shaft of the orbital station. Another day, another impossible repair job that somehow he had managed to fix. The other engineers called him crazy for taking on the jobs nobody else wanted, but Marcus loved the challenge. Old tech, broken tech, alien tech, it didn't matter. If it had circuits and power conduits, he could make it work. The cum unit on his belt crackled to life. "Shun, report to Docking Bay 7 immediately." "We have a situation." Marcus sighed and grabbed his toolkit. Docking Bay 7 was usually reserved for the biggest ships, the ones that needed serious work. As he made his way through the corridors of Kepler Station, he wondered what kind of mess was waiting for him this time. The massive doors of Docking Bay 7 were already open when he arrived. What he saw inside made him stop in his tracks. The ship was enormous, easily 500 meters long, but that wasn't what caught his attention. The hull looked like it was made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to shimmer and shift in the station's lighting. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing faintly with an inner light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "What the hell is that thing?" Marcus muttered. "That would be my ship, little human." The voice came from behind him, deep and rumbling like distant thunder. Marcus turned around slowly and found himself face to face with something out of ancient legends. The creature stood 12 feet tall, with scales that shifted from deep purple to black in the artificial light. Massive wings were folded against its back, and its eyes burned with an inner fire that had seen centuries pass by. This was no ordinary alien. This was an elder dragon. "I am Zixandra, last of the Void Dominion fleet." The dragon's voice carried the weight of authority. But there was something else there, too, exhaustion, maybe even desperation. "Your station master tells me you are the only engineer foolish enough to work on ships you do not understand." Marcus straightened his shoulders. He had worked on plenty of alien tech before, though nothing quite like this. "I can fix most things as long as they follow basic physics." "What seems to be the problem?" Zixandra's expression darkened. "The problem, human, is that my ship is dying. The core systems are failing, the navigation matrix is corrupt, and the quantum drives refuse to engage. 3 different shipyards have told me it cannot be repaired. They lack the knowledge of the old ways." "And you think I might have this knowledge?" Marcus asked, trying to keep the skepticism out of his voice. "I think you are desperate enough for work to try." The dragon's tone was dismissive, almost insulting. "Your reputation suggests you will attempt repairs that others consider impossible. I care nothing for your chances of success, only that you make the attempt." Marcus felt his jaw clench at the dragon's attitude, but he needed the work. The station hadn't been getting many big contracts lately, and his crew was getting restless. "What's the pay?" "If you succeed in making my ship operational, you will be compensated adequately." "If you fail?" The dragon shrugged, a gesture that looked strange on such a massive frame. "You will have wasted both our time." "Charming," Marcus muttered under his breath. "All right, let me take a look at what we're dealing with." The interior of the dragon's ship was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. The corridors were wide and tall, clearly designed for creatures much larger than humans. The walls were covered in the same shifting symbols he had seen on the outside, and the air hummed with barely contained energy. Everything felt old, not just decades old, but ancient. As if the ship had been sailing through space when Earth was still cooling, Zixandra led him to what appeared to be the engine room, though it looked more like a cathedral than any engine bay Marcus had ever worked in. Massive columns stretched up to a vaulted ceiling, each one pulsing with dim light. In the center of the room sat what could only be the ship's power core, a sphere of crystalline material the size of a small house, suspended in a web of energy conduits. "This is a quantum resonance core," Zixandra explained, though her tone suggested she doubted Marcus would understand. "It draws power from the spaces between dimensions. The resonance frequency has been degrading for the past century." Marcus pulled out his portable scanner and pointed it at the core. The readings made no sense at first. Energy patterns he had never seen before, frequencies that shouldn't have been possible. But as he studied the data, patterns began to emerge. It wasn't that different from the fusion cores he was used to working with, just operating on principles that human science was only beginning to understand. "The harmonic resonators are out of alignment," he said after several minutes of study. "The quantum field is becoming unstable because the frequency modulators are working against each other instead of in harmony." Zixandra stared at him. "You can read the resonance patterns?" "Not exactly, but I can see what's happening with the energy flow. It's like having an orchestra where half the instruments are playing slightly off-key. The music still works, but it's getting worse over time." Marcus walked around the core, taking readings from different angles. "I think I can recalibrate the modulators, but I'll need to understand how they interface with the rest of the ship's systems." The dragon's expression had shifted from dismissive to something approaching interest. "The modulation matrix is connected to every major system on the ship. Navigation, life support, weapons, shields, everything draws power through the resonance network." "That's actually brilliant," Marcus admitted. "Instead of having separate power systems for each function, everything shares the same quantum field. More efficient and probably more reliable too, as long as everything stays in sync. For the next 6 hours?" Marcus crawled through maintenance shafts, studied circuit diagrams that looked more like works of art than engineering schematics, and slowly began to understand how the ancient ship functioned. Zixandra followed him, at first clearly expecting him to give up, but gradually becoming more engaged as Marcus asked increasingly sophisticated questions about the ship's systems. The problem isn't just the resonance core, Marcus finally announced as they stood in the ship's control room. The entire quantum field matrix needs to be rebalanced. It's like the ship has forgotten how to coordinate its own systems. That is not entirely inaccurate, Zixandra admitted grudgingly. The ship is old, human. Older than your species has existed. The quantum field develops a kind of memory over time, patterns that become fixed. When those patterns begin to break down, the ship starts to die, Marcus finished. But if I can reestablish the proper harmonic relationships, teach the systems to work together again, you believe you can accomplish what 3 advanced shipyards could not. Marcus grinned. I believe I can accomplish what 3 advanced shipyards wouldn't try. They probably took one look at this tech and decided it was too alien, too different from what they understood. But weird tech is my specialty. The dragon studied him for a long moment. Very well. You may make the attempt. But know this, human, if you damage my ship beyond repair, you will answer to me personally. Understood. Marcus was already pulling tools from his kit. I'll need access to the main quantum regulation chamber and about 48 hours of uninterrupted work time. You shall have it, as Marcus began the delicate process of recalibrating. Quantum resonance modulators that had been functioning since before human civilization began. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this job than a simple repair. The way Zixandra spoke about the ship, the reverence in her voice when she mentioned its age. This wasn't just any vessel. This was something special, something important, but right now, that didn't matter. Right now, all that mattered was the challenge in front of him, making sense of alien technology that defied everything he thought he knew about engineering, and proving that human ingenuity could succeed where others had failed. The quantum field hummed around him as he worked, and Marcus Chin smiled. This was exactly where he belonged.